Hey guys, today I am taking apart this Microtech MSI. I've used this a fair amount, gotten pretty dirty and just gunked up and nasty on the inside. The blade is cleaned up pretty well, but I've used it a whole bunch, especially like outside and doing irrigation stuff with it and opening boxes and cleaning out stuff. So time to give it a little cleanup, clean out the bearings and just tune up in general. So before I break anything down, a little about the knife. This is obviously made by Microtech. I want to say this is a full kind of 4-inch blade here, maybe something like that. Yeah, 3.85-ish, maybe 3.8. For me, this is a really big knife. You guys who like full-size knives, maybe this is a more reasonable size for you, but this is much larger than I like to carry. And honestly, I don't see the appeal for this knife in general. The ram lock I do think is pretty nice as far as a crossbar lock mechanism goes. I don't remember if they've fixed the lock failure issues there were on these, where like you could take it and I mean, it seems good enough, right? I'm whacking it pretty good and it's not failing, so it's halfway decent. But I remember right when these came out, a lot of people were having issues where they would fail basically immediately when you tap it. I think I had an original one that did the same thing. This one is a little bit newer. This one has the, what is it? Injection molded scales. I forget what they call it, plastic injection molded or something like that. They may have tried to throw in some fancy technical jargon in there, but yeah, I mean that's Microtech for the most part. So for me, I don't know. It doesn't really flick open nice for me. I tend to slow roll this because I really need to give it wrist action to flip, or I need to do it with my thumb. And for me to use this what's the word for it? Slot? I don't know. Relief? Opening? Slot? Yeah, whatever. For me to use this to effectively open the knife, you need to hold down pretty far, and then you gotta reposition the whole knife anyway. Whereas some other knives, you can hold it up in like a more reasonable position, or like, I guess I can technically hold it closer there. And then it's an easy reposition, but I don't know. I can't reverse flick this, and I tend to prefer to reverse, cut my finger open, hopefully not. So, I don't know. For me, opening it isn't great. The grind on this isn't really great. I don't really like the knife, but this was cheap enough where it's like, I'll beat on it and maybe it'll change my mind eventually. And I don't care if I mess it up, right? It's got plastic scales and whatever. At the end of the day, it is still a big hunk of M390 that should technically hold its edge fairly well. I have no idea what Rockwell they're treating these to, or how the heat treat procedure is on it. I know Microtech does like cryo stuff on their blades, but I know historically, holy shit, historically there's been some complaints. Obviously, you can tell I've not taken this apart because they've got their 3.5 gallons of rock set on the fucking pivot. Holy smokes. I know you can't feel what I'm unscrewing right now, but hopefully you'll be able to see it in a second. Holy Jesus. That actually doesn't look that bad, but maybe you'll be able to see on the inside. Basically, as I was unscrewing that, just the whole way, it was just grimy and gritty and nasty. They might use Vibrotite. I forget what specific the brand, but whatever the thread locker that they use, I know at least a few of the assembly technicians really fucking bet the farm on getting that shit on there so you can't disassemble your knife. And I don't know. I would personally, I prefer having nothing on there, or if anything, like a dab, just enough to keep it from not vibrating loose. There's no reason that you need to stick like 3 gallons of Vibrotite on the stupid thing. So I know they do that with like everything from their factory, and it obviously bothers me. So T15 for the pivot, nothing crazy there. A T8 for all the body screws. And this is like, I mean, what are we doing here? How many screws do you need? What is it, the Benchmade Griptilian that's got like the same number of screws as this, where there's absolutely no reason? Now, I don't want to talk too much shit. up top, I get it, right? You got to pivot up here, but you can make this a pin, and you can make it captive in these this like scale set, or I guess whatever you want to call it, the action set. But holy smokes, you know, like what are we doing, guys? Why do we need so many screws? Like you gotta really, really, really. Do we need to put this many? Like, couldn't you have had like pin and one screw, something? They may have done that on later ones. I feel like when these first came out, I'm just gonna be bitching this entire video. So if you like this knife, or if you don't want to hear me complain about this knife for the next 3.5 hours, then I guess you can shut it off. But yeah, I mean, I remember when they first came out with these, I want to say that they only had 3 screws visible, right? 3 of these littler screws visible or something like that. It definitely wasn't as many as are visible now. I think what it was is some of them were not visible because they were covered by the scale, because you kind of have a internal liners that do a lot of the work here, and I want to say that they had a different style screw that the internal liners used, and hopefully I'm not mixing all these screws up. I don't know if these are different length. I probably should have kept better track of what was what. They seem to all be the same length, and I guess they're all the same length. Doesn't matter. All right, so something that I do like a little bit about this, it's not my favorite thing in the world, but they've got a little blank plate. So if you are left-handed, and like I am left-handed, but I carry knives right-handed. If you are left-handed and you like to carry left-handed, then you've got a little blank plate there and you can swap the sides. And then additionally, so this way you don't have a big steel liner in here. I think this is a great design detail that I really do like. See, I'm not going to talk shit the whole time. I'm just lulling you into a false sense of me hating this. This goes on the inside, right? So for the pocket clip, you've got this little guy. Now, I've seen some people lose these, and I don't know if they carry them all the time, but I think it was Rip's Garage Tech carried these for a while. So like if you lose it or if you strip it, then this is something that you can buy if Microtech's not willing to warranty it for you. If you're trying to match the finishes, then you know, I don't know if Rips does that or if they just machine the parts. But if you're trying to match Apocalyptic, you need to do a pretty coarse blast, or a pretty fine blast, I should say. So you're using aluminum oxide. I want to say it's like 160 or 180. It's pretty fine. So you want to use that, and then you want to tumble it afterwards, so you can see on the liners where you've got all these tumbling marks. So that's how they get that all situated. What the hell, dude? I'm gonna slice my hand open. Come on, let's go. This is gonna be a fun reassembly, I can tell. You can see it's been a while since I've taken one of these apart, because I'm not super confident on this one. Alright, maybe we won't fuck with that right away. So we'll take apart the other side. That way I can completely not put together anything at all. Here we go. So we're going to take all this apart. I was saying something about the way they used to make these. I don't know if I was still saying that. Probably wasn't. Hopefully the spring doesn't like fuck off into the stratosphere. No, it's still pinned in place. Okay. Let's see. All right. Yeah, I mean, overall, I feel like Microtech does a really good job with their quality of their machine components. And typically there's a couple really interesting milled pieces. I think on this one, the button is probably the most interesting that I'm really looking forward to sharing. I think the button is a super, super interesting part. Super complex to manufacture, or maybe not with a Swiss lathe, but like with traditional manufacturing methods. God, I'm such an idiot. What are we doing? I think I gotta push the pivot out. Like, what are we doing here? You know? Like, I got all the screws out. There's probably someone screaming at their camera or their computer right now because I'm fucking this up. I got all the screws out, right? We're unlocking the blade. Is this thing like staked in place? Or did I just torque on this blade so bad that the pivot is now fucking stuck? I gotta push this back? Like, what am I doing? You can see, maybe you can't see. It looks like the D is a little bit misaligned on this this guy here. So I'm trying to twist it a little bit and see if we can, you know, I can feel it moving a little bit. I don't know if I'm moving anything significant, but I can feel something moving. Something's up. We're almost there. There we go. Holy smokes. All right. So this is something that I do think is interesting. I don't know if I'll say I like it or dislike it or whatever. Maybe I'm indifferent. But I do think it's pretty cool as a weight reduction measure to have the partial scales like this. I think that's pretty interesting. Thank God these are the captive bearings. An LUDT that I had a while ago. Maybe you guys have seen that video or maybe you haven't. But the bearings were not captive. So you'd take the bearings out and instead of being like press fit in where they don't fall out, the bearings just fucking fell out everywhere. It's ridiculous. So thankfully they've since changed their manufacturing process on that. But that was stupid in the first place. I'm like, come on, you know? The poor assembly guys that are putting everything together, the stupid bearings falling apart everywhere. But these seem, I mean, not seem, these are caged. Those aren't falling apart. So that is good from that perspective. So blade here, right? So we'll give this a little measure across the flats to see what the thickness is. So 160 thou. So that is a thick blade. I forget what the XM18 is from Hinderer, but this is probably about the same. The XM18 might be 165. I forget. The skinny I think is 125 thou, and this 165 is thick, right? I guess if you're doing really heavy duty work with it, then I could see it. But I don't know, man. For me, I'm using pocket knives particularly for or almost exclusively, I guess I should say, for cutting open boxes or tape or breaking down boxes and slicing them apart and everything. So, I mean, I don't really personally see the reason to need 165 thou blade stock thickness, but you know, there is a market for the overbuilt stuff. So like, I get it that people are interested in that and people do want that. So I guess the most interesting part for me on this is this piece right here. So steel wise, I am unsure what this is made from, given that it's sliding up against the blade all the time. I would bet that it's probably 440C. I don't know if these are like 17.4 or if they're 440C. If I had files for checking Rockwell hardness, that'd probably be a good thing, right? Because 17.4 is only going to get up to like the mid 40s or maybe high 40s if you really push it for hardness. And the 440C, which maybe this is, would get up really, really high. But anyway, so you got some sort of hardenable steel for this button. Your lock geometry is this little shiny spot right here. So, I mean, you got to think about how they are holding these things when they're manufacturing them, right? Because you've got this textured surface here. So maybe they're holding it from this side like that, and the cutter's coming down in this direction. So they're cutting the X, like their signature thing there. They cut down this corner. Maybe they're cutting in these guys in the same operation with a really tiny end mill. I don't really know. Maybe they do these on a Swiss lathe, right? So maybe they're holding them somehow and milling everything, and then they've got a second operation that comes in and drills this hole. So maybe there's like a stem or something similar to this that sticks in there. I have no idea. It's a really interesting part. I was looking at making these with tritium and tritium vials a while ago, but the machinist that I typically use, we like sat down and looked at it, and there's no way that I'm making that part for a price that people will be willing to pay, especially once you stick the vials in there and everything. It's just not going to happen, you know? So it was something that I wanted to make work because I think it's pretty cool. But between the lock geometry, which was everyone was having issues with when I evaluated that in the first place, so it must be pretty finicky. So I got to get that exact. So it's a tough feature to mill. The guy that I work with doesn't have a Swiss lathe, so that's another thing to worry about, right? It's like, okay, well, there's no Swiss lathe that we're making these with, so we got to make them on either a normal lathe or make it in 3 trillion operations on a milling machine. Even with a 4th axis, right? You're holding this thing, and you could hold it the same way I was saying before. Have this be milled out and have a little stem that you could hold on to. Spin this thing around and you could cut all the features and do all the things, right? Then you still got to come up with a way to hold it afterwards so you can drill this hole for the spring and everything. So, I mean, it's just a tough part, and you need a 4th axis or some sort of more expensive machinery or work holding for multiple fixtures and stuff. So big investment, and given all the issues that there were at the time, I was like, there's no chance that I ever make my money back on this if I invest into tooling and fixtures and everything to make these parts. So you can see shiny spot on the inside here. So that's from the blade sliding over it over time. Makes sense. Nothing crazy there. And you can see our liners here. So again, I think the liners are a good idea. There's definitely some material that looks like it could be removed. Sorry, I'm wiping everything like off camera because I have 3 trillion screws on the table right now. But yeah, I think the liners are a good idea. I don't know if you need the abundance of screws to hold everything in. I feel like a lot of this wants to be pins instead of screws, but you know what? It's not my knife design. He can do what he wants. And if this is what they decided was the best, then cool. Maybe they had like 3 trillion screws that they were looking to get rid of, and they were like, oh, you know what? Fuck it. We'll just make the whole knife out of screws instead. I have no idea. But for me, it's like, what do you need 12 screws on a knife for? It seems silly. Actually, not 12. 12 with the pivots, and then another 4 for the screws. So you got 16 screws in the knife. Like, come on. That's more parts than a lot of folding knives have. So anyway, that'll be enough about that. So I'll clean these scales up a little bit on the inside. I will say, for actually using this knife, it's pretty good. I haven't had it fail on me. Not this one, at least. The other one I kind of sent off for DLC coating shortly after I got it, and then got rid of it because it just didn't really speak to me. I ended up picking this up, I don't even remember when, but it was a while ago. Well, this will be fun. Now I got to figure out what goes where. That's definitely for the back spacer. This up here, definitely. Yeah, you should, instead of rambling, I should probably pay attention to what I'm taking apart and where it comes from. That way I don't need to figure it out for myself, especially when it's a puzzle like this one, where you got a bunch of different parts and they go into weird positions and weird places. Maybe you can see what I'm talking about with the Loctite or the thread locker. A lot of these screws have it on there. The T10 ones, or T8 ones, are a little less bad than the pivot. The pivot was insane, and maybe they need to do that for some reason. Can't imagine why, but maybe that's some critical thing that they need to do, and there's some reason for it. I can't stand it, but that's just personal opinion. So yeah, so putting the liners back in now. I don't know if this is the easiest way to do it. Maybe I don't want to put the liner in this one yet. I've already got that. Now I want the whatever the hell this piece is called. The pin where the rod that holds the spring goes. I have no idea. Someone want to come up with a name for this piece for me? I don't know. I'll call it a standoff, but obviously this is doing much more than just being a standoff. So Got to make sure it's indexed right. You know, there's a couple flats on it, so you want to make sure the flats are in there in the right position. That'll be pretty important. Then we got a stop pin here, and again, you've got flats on here. That is something that I'll say I definitely appreciate, is I really like when stuff is held in with flats, as long as it all works properly and it's not a huge pain to disassemble. This one, obviously, I had issues disassembling. Maybe that's because it was a little dirty, or maybe it's because I'm an idiot and I was opening it the wrong way or something, which is definitely an option. So maybe that's a user error thing where I'm just being a dumbass and fucking stuff up. So maybe I'll get better at this. I kind of skipped over showing you guys that part. I didn't realize I was out of the thing. The phone's kind of in the way for doing this. So basically, you got this little arm here, right? I don't really know what to call it, but you got the arm. Spring goes on top, obviously, and then this the pin goes into the hole on the button. Big surprise. So whole thing. Yeah, I did that in the wrong order. You want to kind of compress it and drop it in. So pinch everything in, drop it in, and then it'll kind of just hang out. I mean, it's on an angle, so it's kind of wacky right now, but that'll do, you know. Something else I guess worth noting, this is blank on the back. I know they make ones with false pivots, and I was kind of worried when I was opening this up in the first place, like, okay, maybe I'm doing one with a false pivot. Some of them have the little Torx heads just for uniformity, so that's how you look at it and you see like, oh, look at that, they're both Torxes, and it'll make you think that both of them will open the knife, but in reality that's not true. So you got to keep an eye out for that. I don't know, people probably already know that and they're like, yeah, you're an idiot. So that's going to go in. Again, this has got a flat. I think that's nice. Maybe you do like that. Maybe you don't like that. For me, I think it's a good thing. I think that's a plus. So reassembling this now, I'm going to put some thin KPL on where the bearing is going to ride. So you can see the wear area for the bearing there. So we got that. And then these are like, I don't know, I'll call it a half-ass 2-row. This is technically a 2-row bearing, but goddamn, that's close together, you know. But it's wearing 2 distinct tracks, so it definitely is a two-row bearing. I don't know if that actually makes a difference, honestly. I like the 2 rows because my monkey brain looks at it and it goes, oh look, there's 2 rows of bearings. It's much stronger. Like that's what my head says. But in real life, I don't know. It probably doesn't make a difference. Maybe you guys know otherwise. I remember seeing something, I forget what page it was on, but it was a while ago. I remember seeing something on some page about, I think it was some technical guy at Tactile Knife Co., I want to say. It might have been another company, but I think it was Tactile. Had done like load cell measurements on what the distribution was for the actual loads that he was seeing in multi-row bearings, with like stainless and single row with stainless and ceramic. It was pretty interesting. It was cool to see. There was a huge difference in the I'm gonna cut my fucking fingers off. There was a huge difference in the stress or the load that was imparted on the bearings, that depended on, you know, whether it's multi-row or single row or a bunch of like basically every factor. And if I'm remembering right, it was like stainless had, I think it was the highest load or the highest drag or whatever he was measuring, and then single row was lower load or lower drag or whatever it was, and then the multi-row with the carbide or with the ceramic bearings was like way lower. I think it was like 50% of the drag or something like that. So maybe that makes it justifiable to check that out, if you can make multi-row bearings work. I like it, like I said, because of the monkey brain thing, and like, oh cool, multi-row, that must be more is better. But I don't know, maybe that doesn't matter at all. I am now realizing that I probably should have put the clip on before. It's probably not super important, but I I don't really know. I also don't know if this screw is going to fit through this hole. It is not. So we're going to have to jank this a little bit. Let's see. This S design is pretty interesting on the clip. So that way you're not going from one side only. It's kind of unique. I don't know if I've seen that before. So little props there. But again, I do think most of the machining on the Microtech stuff is pretty solid. I know they're transitioning away from the machine stuff in a lot of their knives, and they're transitioning into a lot of laser cut stuff because they just spent $3 million. I don't know, maybe not literally, maybe it is literally. They just spent a dickload of money on a big fancy Mazak laser cutter that's got liquid nitrogen cooling and I don't know, all kinds of crazy stuff. So pretty big purchase there. And I mean, believe me, I'd be trying to justify using that thing as much as possible if I was the one financing that machine too. Man, this is dumb. But yeah, I mean, I'd be using that thing for everything too. And if you've got the capability for it, it really depends on what your goal is. For me, I'd rather see fewer quantity of something and much higher quality, even if that quality is done in a less efficient way, right? That's a me thing. Maybe I am not the average customer for a person that buys Microtech knives. God fucking damn. This thing is giving me a run for my money. I should have done this in the first place instead of being a dumbass and thinking that I could do this out of order. Oh, I'm gonna lose the other screw. This is the dumbest thing I've ever done. And that's saying something. All right, there we go. Struggle Fest is starting to end. Holy smokes. I'm lucky this blade isn't just like falling out and chopping my legs open. All right, we got the clip screw on. I'm probably putting that on the wrong side. Hopefully it's on the right side. Got that. I'd already oiled the one side. I got to oil the other side. But since I learned my lesson, we're going to put this on. Although this one's the easy one, so it doesn't really matter. This is reversible, which I think is a good idea. So you can put this on the other side, flip it over. So I think that's good. You got some sort of blanking plate here, which is going to help. I mean, it's better than having a big hole in the side of your knife where that clip profile is going to sit. So I think that's a pretty good idea. This one has a sheet metal clip. I actually do really like the clip on this, but I know I'm in the minority that actually likes I shouldn't say likes, actually prefers the sheet metal clips over anything else. I can't stand milled clips. Microtech has switched over to milled clips on a lot of their new knives. I know a lot of people love them and it's like their favorite thing because they're more expensive to make and they have higher retention, but God, they're miserable to use, in my opinion. I know a lot of you guys love them, and I am 100% in the minority there, and I fully accept that, but man, I fucking hate those things. Their retention is insane. They're impossible to get in and out of my pants. It's just ridiculous. I don't know, man. If you like them, then I'm happy for you because everyone is switching to using them, but I can't stand them. It's crazy. So, pretty weird thread pitch on this this pivot screw. I can't really tell offhand what it is, but it looks huge and comical. I'll have to measure it sometime, what the actual diameter is. I'll measure it right now. I mean, what am I doing? I'll show you guys, without thread pitch gauges, how you may be able to measure thread pitch. So, first thing, you gotta figure out the size. So this is 190. 190. So, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that this is an oversized 0.1875 screw. And if I can get my brain to work, 0.1875 is 3/16 of an inch. So I'm going to say that this is a 3/16 diameter screw, which is definitely a weird size. Now, if you don't have thread pitch gauges, and this isn't perfectly accurate, so bear with me. Holy shit, this thing's impossible to get started. This is super fine pitch, especially for something that size. What you want to do, so we've got some room here, and I'm going to go ahead and install the other screws, and hopefully not completely forget what I was doing. We'll see. But hopefully I do remember what I was doing. Come on, I'm trying to put this stupid thing in one-handed. If I ever lose a hand, I'm screwed. You guys ever try and do things with your opposite hand and have no idea what you're doing? Like every once in a while, I'll be messing around on my phone, be too lazy to put my phone. I guess not too lazy. I'll be too much of a brainwashed millennial, and I'll be playing on my phone and not want to put it away. And what the hell? Other side. And I'll try and brush my teeth with my opposite hand or something, and holy smokes, I cannot brush my teeth with my opposite hand. You never really realize how much of a difference the muscle memory makes until you start doing things with the opposite hand. I had a pretty severe, maybe not super severe, I had a table saw injury a while back, and like severed my bicep nearly in half because I had a board kickback and messed me up pretty good. And there was a lot of stuff that I was doing with my left hand. I'm left-handed, and this happened to my right hand, but it was like, I don't know, it's kind of wild how used to things you get with one hand, or with only one side of your body. Anyway, story for a different time. We've got the screw in here pretty well. I don't know how many full threads it is, but basically what you can do is measure here and zero out, right? So we go into ink mode, which I think is like incremental or something like that. And if you don't have expensive calipers like this, there are other ways that you can do it. You can set your 0 point, and then it'll just read as negative. I mean, it's the same thing, right? So maybe yours doesn't go to ink, it just actually zeroes out, but this will store the true zero at the same time, which is a nice feature to have. And then what you can do is go just until this drops in. So we dropped in, and you can see where that kind of red dot is on the side, right? So we want to go one full turn, and if you can go a full another turn, now you got 2. Maybe we can go, no, we're not going 3. That's already pretty tight. So we've gone 2 full turns. Now, we got this, and you can see we're down 334.5 thousandths. So we'll call it 34. So it's 17 thousandths per turn. So the way you would do this, and I got my camera recording right now, and I don't know if I can do this in my head, but it'd be 1 over 0.017. Or if you're real lazy, you can say I did 2 full turns divided by 0.0345, if you want to throw that in there too. And that'll give you your thread pitch. So those are your 2 measurements that you need. There's some other stuff if you're doing like thread tolerancing, where you can put the class of the threads and everything on there. So it could be like class B threads or class A threads or whatever. But anyway, the important part of the thread measurements typically is the diameter and the pitch. So doing that 1 over 0.017, which would be like, I don't know. Well, let me see. Maybe I'll get lucky and it won't cancel the video. Not confident. Yeah, that canceled the video. So I'm splicing together another piece. Don't open your calculator while you're recording, or else it cancels it. Now you know. So anyway, what I was doing is that 1 over 0.017, or I guess it'd be 0.0172. And what you get is like 58.8. That'd be a pretty weird number for a thread pitch. So my guess is that it's a 56 thread pitch, which would be standard. So like number 2, or am I stupid? Yeah, it's a number 2. Number 2 dash 56 is a standard thread size. So I'm thinking that this is a 3/16 dash 56 thread pitch. And if you don't have a thread pitch gauge, that's a way you can do it. And the more threads that you can get measured, right? So the better way, I guess, to do it would be to measure here and then back it out as many full turns or full turns and half turns as you can get. So you got 123 down there, but who knows how many that was. So we zero it, and we'll try again, right? So now we're tightened all the way. We got that in that position. So we're gonna go, that's 1 full turn, that's 2 full turns, and that's 3 full turns. So we'll give that a shot. Now, if my math was right, my method was right the first time, this should be like 51 thousandths for the 3 full turns. So we got a little bit more, 53. So 53 for 3 full turns is whatever, you know. You guys can do math probably better than me. That's like, is it 18? Almost 17.6. So it might actually be 60 threads per inch. I'm not going to go to my calculator again, but you can do the math, right? You could do 3 over 0.053, and you can see what that comes out to. And that'll give you the actual thread pitch. So that's a good way to do it if you're ever trying to figure out what size screw something is. And you could do this on anything, right? As long as you can measure where it starts and where it finishes. It's easy on knives because you got this boss on the back that, and especially on something that's D-shaped like this and it's held in place. Super easy, super straightforward. So if you're trying to figure out if it's like a 1/4 20 screw or a 1/4 28 screw, that's a reliable way to do it. That's not what you came here for. You're here for me to take apart and put back together this knife. So anyway, we took it apart. We're back together. It's nice and clean. It's ready for me to beat on again. I want to keep beating on it, mostly because I probably couldn't sell this thing for over 120 bucks. So at this point, it's like, I may not like it, but I don't really care about it. I can keep beating it up. And to be honest, I don't really care if I beat it up. It's not like it's a showpiece or anything. It does fine. I don't really like it for cutting up boxes and stuff. I'd rather a thinner knife for that. But if I'm out landscaping or out doing stuff around the yard or whatever, I think it's a perfectly good knife for that. So if you can get one for cheap on the secondary market, I say why not? Make sure that the lock is good and make sure that you're not going to cut your fingers off. But otherwise, yeah, I say go for it. Have a good one.